I should have called them not diving days instead of days off, because they were not days off.
You should have called them prison days.
Grumpy divers were not talking to me as nice as they did. Well, it was about 35 people.
How many archaeologists?
And that's a mean question. Hello everyone and welcome to Underwater Adventures with Alex Mirabal. Today we will be talking about my longest expedition offshore. So let's dive into it. First, I need to define and tell you what I mean by the longest expedition. My expeditions normally, I would consider that the expeditions are from the beginning to the end of the season. That will be 6 to 8 months. So I'm not talking about that. I will be talking about the longest expedition offshore, meaning that we were in the ship, the entire team, we were in the ship without getting to land anywhere. So offshore, living and working in the sea, which was the longest one and why? Okay, I'm laughing because it's an issue. It's a point in which I have discussed with my team members a lot afterwards. It was a mix of my misunderstanding of the situation and carrying a different way of work from where I came from. This expedition was in 1999 in Cape Verde. So it was my first expedition as a team leader out of Cuba. I was working in Cuba for 14 years, as you may have seen in the previous episodes. We had a very clear system of expeditions in Cuba. We worked 20 days offshore, then we got 10 days off inland to prepare for the next expedition and for the people to rest. So that was my standard. And in that standard comes in that when I was not offshore, I was at home. So every time that I left home to an expedition, for me, it's already an expedition. I'm out of my house, so I'm working. And I expect everyone else to do the same. So when I started in 1999, this expedition in Cape Verde, I was brought to join a team which already existed. It was not a team I selected. I was put in a boat in Ciudad de Vella in the island of Santiago in Cape Verde, which had already a team working there. I arrived as a team leader and I first tried to figure out, okay, how do I work here? This is certainly different of what I have experienced in the past. And the first shock was that the boat was huge in comparison to the boats I was used to work with in Cuba. You know, little yachts or transformed yachts into expedition boats. And the second was the size of the team. In Cuba, the largest team we have offshore, people living in the boat, was about 14, 15 people between all of us, you know, captain and
cook and everyone.
And engineer, divers, archaeologists, everyone. We were about 15. And then I was suddenly put into an environment in which the team was about 35 people. With plenty of divers, which didn't know anything about archaeology. Engineers, not one engine guy, but engineers, government representatives, fiscals, and people from the government.
Every day?
Culture.
The government representatives and the team were there every day also?
Yeah. The government representative and the fiscals, they were on board as long as we were on board.
Wow, okay.
They were living in the boat with us for the entire time. Obviously, in Cuba, we didn't need that
because everything is from the government. They all
we
know.
were a government company,
Yeah.
a
To
fiscal
tell anyone.
someone to control what we were doing. We were the government company appointed to do that.
Yeah.
But in Cape Verde was different. We were a foreign company working there, so obviously we needed fiscalization control from the government and from the Minister of Culture. And I had also 3, 4 people there all the time, every day, plus divers and captain and well, it was about 35 people.
How many
And
archaeologists?
one.
Okay, just wanted to find out in those 35 people how many archaeologists
that's
are
it.
in the archaeology expedition. Yeah.
That's a mean question because this happens very often. You have all this bureaucratic setup around the expedition, and sometimes the technical part of it is a little bit neglected or underestimated. But yeah, okay. And I was the archaeologist, but I have to stress this point because I was the archaeologist in situ, but I was not the archaeologist holding the license. My role in that expedition was as an operation manager. There was another
operational.
archaeologist.
It wasn't strategic.
Yeah. There was another archaeologist with a license for Cape Verde, which was not on board, but I have to report to that person and give the information, the data. So I was there as an operation manager. Well, to try to make a long story short, I arrived there in Ciudad de Vella. We were working there in various wrecks because Ciudad de Vella, as I have mentioned in other episodes, it has quite a lot of wreck sites because the main port of the Santiago Island for many centuries. So many ships were going there, and obviously there are many shipwrecks in the area. So we were working there for a while. I would say I arrived and the ship was already in Ciudad de Vella. I just joined the expedition in Ciudad de Vella. I saw that huge ship and that huge team, both. These are my perception of what I got at the time. It doesn't mean, maybe some of you would have been in bigger expeditions with larger teams and larger boats. Okay, for my perception, coming from Cuba with a little boat of 20 meters long and 12, 13 guys on board, arrived to a boat of 50 meters long with 35 people on board. Half of them, I didn't have any idea what they were doing there.
What was the actual role?
Exactly, but they were there. They were there, and you have to manage them. So I started the expedition. We stayed there in Ciudad de Vella for about 2 weeks. And then I was told from my company, you need to go to the Princess Luisa, which is in the north of the island of Mayo. The Ciudad de Vella is in the south of the island of Santiago. Then you have to go all the way up to the north of the island of Mayo to the Princess Luisa to resume works that have started the year before. So there we went. There was already, just start adding up. We were already like about 2 weeks in Ciudad de Vella, then we moved to the north of Mayo, and then we started working in the Princess Luisa from 1743. I have mentioned the Princess Luisa in other episodes. It was a very interesting shipwreck in a very complicated place to work because the Galleon Reef, so the reef of the galleon, it is a very difficult place to dive. This is a massive, it is a massive swell.
I wonder where the name comes from.
Well, it came from the Princess Luisa, but there is not only the Princess Luisa in that reef. There
But that's what I mean.
Some
That's what
other
I mean.
wrecks.
Yeah.
It is a place which is very difficult to work. So I think I have mentioned the Princess Luisa probably in the episode of difficult wrecks to dive. So. We were working there for another 2 weeks. You start adding up weeks. So I started, because this is the part in which it comes, my previous experience, is that for me, going away from home is already being in expedition, and I expect everyone to follow that. But I was away from home, but the guys were, most of them Cape Verdeans. They were local divers, fiscals, Minister of Culture officials, captains.
They were at home. The one that wasn't at home is you. They were at home.
These people lived there,
Yeah.
nearby in a way.
Nothing
from the
is really
place we were
nearby, but
working.
yeah.
But from the place we were working. And I was so concentrated in the work that it didn't cross my mind that I should stop the expedition for any reason.
Yeah. Certainly not for any reason for you.
That's true. But on top of it, this ship, it was my first expedition ship which had a water maker. And why I say this? Because in every expedition I have been in the past, the breaking point was the water.
Yeah.
You run out of fresh water because my previous ships, the ships that I was working in Cuba, they didn't have water makers. So
I don't even know what a water maker is.
It is a machine that desalinizes the seawater and makes fresh water.
Okay.
So the good ones, water you can drink, you can use for your showers or to cook, for the fresh water uses.
Nice.
But in Cuba, we had these big tanks that we load with fresh water, and as long as that tank would last, that would be the length of your expedition.
Totally.
Because it was difficult. Sometimes we went to little towns and we refill a bit the fresh water, but normally that was our fuse. It was the breaking point in which you said, okay, we have to go back because we don't have fresh water anymore. But this ship have a very nice
state-of-the-art water maker.
Yeah. Well, it was not state-of-the-art, but it produced a lot of fresh water. So for me, there was absolutely no reason to go back to land. There was no reason at all. But one of the divers told me, hey man, but we need to get a rest sometime because we're working every day. I was working together with them, but for me it was like, okay, that's what I came to do. It doesn't matter if I'm diving every day and I'm doing my job. But I said, okay, cool. So Sundays, which are like the normal days in which people rest.
The day of the Lord.
Sundays.
Yes.
Sundays I gave them as days off, so nobody worked that day. And that was not really true because we were offshore in a boat. So I should have called them not diving days instead of days off because they were not days off.
You should have called them prison days. Prison days on the boat.
Well, my idea was that, okay, you guys, you're tired because we are diving 3 times every day.
Yeah.
Okay, one day we rest. We don't dive. But that's not really rest. That's not, it's just not diving.
Correct. Correct.
And I unfortunately also ignore or neglect that in this big team in the ship, there were plenty of people which were not divers. I was just giving us, the divers, a break on Sundays, but the rest of the people have to do the same as they need to do. Cook and the engineer and everyone. So nobody was really resting anything. And I didn't realize. And then it comes this fortunate situation for me. My dive supervisor in Cape Verde, Alain Urtebitz, I have talked about Alain in previous episodes, which is a very dear friend, but at that time we didn't know each other. He's French. He was living in Cape Verde already for some years. He was the responsible for the Cape Verdean divers. But till that moment, he was in the French Polynesia doing some dive work like laying cable for internet or for communications. So he was busy there, and then he returned and joined the expedition like halfway. When we were already in the Princess Luisa, he arrived there. I just met the guy. He is a very strict person, very professional, no nonsense guy.
Type of person, yeah.
You cannot get him around any silly thing because he has very clear how a diving operation should go. So he arrived there. We immediately got very good vibes. We got very good together and we started planning things. We actually found 2 wrecks in that time in these non-diving days, the Sundays. It actually were 2 consecutive Sundays. In one, we found, him and me, we found the Yorktown, an American ship that sunk in 1850 in the north of Mayo. It was involved in the chasing or in trying to stop the slave trade activities. So the USS Yorktown, it was patrolling that area and they sank in the north coast of Mayo. We found it one weekend, one Sunday, when non-diving days, because it was not diving days for the divers, but for him and me, it was like, okay, we have nothing else to do this Sunday, let's go to the sea and let's do something.
All I'm hearing is all of the mistakes that CEOs, leaders, team leads tend to make in every working situation. You need to set the example. If Sundays are day off, you're also not diving because but I can understand that in 1999 that was a concept that you also did not understand. I know many people that went to trainings about this and still didn't follow the rules. So I'm not judging you. I actually can justify it to you much more. But yes, it's the same mistake that every team lead, CEO, head of department makes every single time. Yes, sorry.
I'm not trying to get away from my responsibility. I know I didn't do properly. I learned that later on. But the thing was that, okay, on Sundays, everyone was just chilling not the divers was just chilling, meaning that they were not diving. And it was hot. And it was hard to walk on the deck of the boat.
You were still on a boat. You weren't in a house.
Yeah, exactly.
You were still on a boat.
If I'm here, let's go diving.
Yeah, of course.
So that way we found the Yorktown from 1850, and then the next day off, or not diving day, the next Sunday, we found the Schimmelmann. I have talked about the Schimmelmann. Was a great discovery with this copper plate money. We were really busy those days. And Alain, it was not only the dive supervisor, the person who will set up the dive activities, but in a way, because of him living in Cape Verde, he was sort of a representative of the Cape Verdean divers in a way that nobody will take advantage or abuse these working people for whatever reason. And one day he came to me after it was already 48 days offshore. I know for many of you, 48 days offshore might not sound too much. Trust me, in the work we do,
it sounds like a lot.
Diving 3 times a day and doing quite a physical effort as well, and responsibilities of doing this job in the best of your capabilities. It is hard, it is stressful, and it's tiring, 48 days is a lot. I have never had any other offshore operation for that long. But he was the one who came to my room, in my cabin, and told me, just to know, he asked me, just to know what's your planning. When do you want to give people a day off? When do people would rest? And I said,
when would it be okay for you, Sir Alex, for people to rest?
No. And I said, no, we are stopping every Sunday and they don't dive. I said, no, dude, these people live here. They have houses, they have families, they have responsibilities. They can't just be, if we can avoid it, and we could. At that time, we were 6 hours away from the capital city, Praia, in the island of Santiago, where most of the people live. Everyone, including Alain, not me, but everyone lived in Santiago. And in Praia, we were like 6 hours away. We were not that far. So he told me, should we consider going back? So people, because I have noticed already that people were grumpy, divers were not talking to me as nice as they did in the past. Productivity and the quality of the work also went down. It is not the same when you have a motivated team. Look, I understand that totally right now.
I
But at that
know.
time I was learning how to handle such a big amount of people that I don't really spoke the language at the time. They speak Creole, which is not Portuguese, it's not
Creole.
Spanish, it's not English, it's
It's
Creole, it's a mix on everything. I was trying to learn to try to understand exactly what they tell me, because the main content I will get because
Yeah,
Alan
yeah.
helped me a lot, but the details, these shades in the color
The
of the
language.
communication that you need to know or to understand why people are not being the same as 48 days ago.
Yeah, I want.
Yeah. Now it looks like a very easy answer. For me, it was a little bit puzzling.
But-
it was like, what? I mean, I told Alan.
We've been chilling
I will
every
only
Sunday.
I will see my family. I also have my responsibilities. I will see my family in 4 months from now. So for me, this is an expedition. We need to stay offshore as long as we can. And he told me, yeah, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
You have no other option to see your family in 4 months from now, but they do.
Yeah.
And we are here. They are 6 hours away from their families. So
Yeah.
actually, I understood. I'm trying to make this a little bit like jokingly, but I understood that it was a serious thing.
Yeah.
That it was in my hands to decide, okay, hey, let's take a break now. Let's go to land. Obviously, after 48 days, I couldn't give the team a day off. I need
Yeah.
to give them a little bit more than that. And we did. Unfortunately, when I took the decision, when Alan told me and I took the decision, it was a Monday. So it didn't get much better. They arrived in Praia on a Monday.
Where everybody else is busy. Like,
Kids were at school, wives were working. They arrived home to be just sitting there alone.
empty. Empty in their house like this.
So, okay, guys, it was my first expedition. I understand it was not the most clever one, it was not the most brilliant one, but I wanted to share with you why a misunderstanding or a misconception of what an expedition is can lead you to make these sort of mistakes and make an unnecessarily long expedition. And now I tell you everything which is negative about that. In my mind was like, okay, this is the way to go. The longer we are in the wrecks, the longer we are offshore, the higher the possibilities we have to do a good job. Well, that's not true. The work and the rest, they have to go hand in hand. If you don't have a rested team, I was learning that time because in my previous experience, which was in Cuba, 20 days and then 10 days of resting, that was okay. 20 days, not too much. And then you have 10 days to catch up with your family issues and your private issues and actually physically resting. You can do that. For me, expedition was expedition. I didn't consider that in the way that I consider it today, that I learned. I have been a successful team leader for many years because I've learned from that first expedition how you need to compensate work and rest if you want a productive and a happy and a motivated team. It is not let's push it to the limit, because then you will have, before you get to the limit, you will have a long stretch of inefficient work and bad results. So that was coincidentally my longest expedition offshore, and at the same time, because it was my first expedition, the one that taught me the most about what should I do in the future. So I wanted to share this with you. I hope you guys can put in the comment section if you have been in longer expeditions or if you have any other experience regarding expedition where you think that the expedition should have got shorter or maybe longer. Please let me know in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Share it with your friends or to whomever you think it will find it interesting, and let's keep on diving.